Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations around money. I'm your host, Lauren, a 4-time Olympian and certified financial planner. On this show, my guests share their money stories. Everyone has a unique story and experiences both wins and losses when it comes to money. My intent is to give listeners something they can relate to, something that builds their courage to be open and take control of their own money story. When I'm not creating a great show for my listeners, I'm running my company, Worth Winning, where I help individuals and families organize their finances. Check us out at worth-winning.com. All right, now on with the show. Today, I'm excited to have Kelvin Beachum here to share his money memoir with us. Kelvin is a Texas native entering his 12th season in the NFL, currently with the Arizona Cardinals. I just love Kelvin. I can't wait till you guys hear this story today. He's a board member, advisor, active technology investor, and just an all-around good person. I mean, he's passionate about ending hunger, providing clean water access, advocating for education and equality. I mean, you name it, Kelvin has his hand in it and is really like making his impact on this world. So encouraging minority youth to pursue STEAM disciplines. He's going to talk about that today. Oh my goodness. I just cannot say enough good things about this person. You're going to know momentarily. So I first met Kelvin in the world of VC. He's going to share his money memoir with us and tell us a little bit about how he even got into the investing piece of the puzzle. Let's go. All right, it has been a while since we've had an NFL player on the show, but I'm excited to have this particular NFL player on because Kelvin's not just an NFL player. Athletes in general are so much more than an athlete, but he is like the definition of more than an athlete. So, Kelvin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. What a wonderful introduction.
Today is all about getting to know you a little bit more, finding out what your money memoir is, but we want you to tell your story in your own words. So why don't we just start from the beginning? Tell us a little bit about like where you're from, what your upbringing was like, what your parents did. Yeah, just go way back for us.
Way back. So grew up in Mahia, Texas, about an hour and a half south of Dallas. Had both parents growing up. So dad was an automotive technician, still working on cars, owns his own business. My mother just retired 4 or 5 years ago. She was a professional therapist at the Mahia State Living Supported Center, which was a state-run center for mentally challenged individuals. So she worked there for 30 years. So just retired. 4 of us. So I'm the oldest of 4. I have bunk beds, so me and my brother shared a room. And my mom actually asked me this morning, she was like, you and your brother got anything going on? Yeah, all right. When you share a room with another man or a boy for, half of your life, there are some things you like and don't like about that individual, but I love my brother.
You get to know them really, really well, right?
Very, very, very well, almost too well. So, you have a younger brother that's peeing in the bed, you the bunk bed up under it, you already know what's going down. So it's a love-hate relationship. But I mean, everybody has a brother like that. But I love my brother, oldest of 4. We all play sports, heavily involved in the church. My grandfather was my pastor, so grew up in the church. He wanted us more in the church than he wanted us playing sports. So he would get pissed off when we went to church because we was playing basketball and football and AAU and all that good stuff. But played all the sports growing up. All of us went to college on scholarships. I went to SMU. My sister went to MCC first and then went to Henderson State down in Arkansas. Brother went to Southeastern in Durant, Oklahoma. And then my sister started at MCC and then finished up at Illinois State. So all of us were educated. Mother wouldn't allow us to play sports unless we got our grades right. So the conversation and the duality between being a student athlete was something that our parents, they made sure that was something that they modeled, but also were very poignant about making sure that we got that right. So I went out to SMU, played ball there, got a scholarship to play football there, graduated in 3.5 years.
Wait a minute. So you stayed nearby then. You went right down the road because you said Dallas was just like an hour and a half. SMU is in Dallas. So you kind of stayed home for school.
Well, when you ain't been anywhere, you're not exposed to anything. When you get a scholarship from an institution that's SMU and your mama said that's where you're going to school, that's where you're going to school. So that's why I went to
Okay, hold up for a second, because you also said that church was big in the family. We usually know that like There's a stigma around like the idea that if you're in church or you're a pastor or something, like they give all their money away. They don't earn, they live a life of poverty. But then we got kind of like the opposing side, the TD Jakes side of things. What kind of money messages were you hearing in light of what your parents did for a living and growing up in the church?
My dad, being an entrepreneur, you realize that you have to work for what you want. So my dad, he worked all the time, and we also did church. There would be times where he would work during the week, go referee on the weekend, and then make it home for church on Sunday morning, and then go referee after church. So yes, that was heavily involved in our life, but living in poverty was what we had at the moment, but that was not the life that my parents wanted us to live ultimately. So I think that there's an opportunity in a way in which you can, yes, live a Christ-filled life, but also be afforded the opportunity to go and be a capitalist and go and work for what you want as well. And my parents were big about, if you want it, go work for it. As simple as that. So they were big about making sure that we were equipped to survive. And once they taught us how to survive, they taught us how to thrive. And I think that was something that, really has carried not only myself and my entire family through kind of where we are today. So, we're just going to be in church all the time and be poor. But how do you know how good God is and all the blessings that come with that, but also realize the opportunities that you have out there for you? So are you taking God along with you as you're going everywhere in your life? I mean, I got the hymn book literally right here in front of me.
It is right there.
Literally, right? Like literally right here. Like that's the hymn book. And here's my devotion. Right. But at the same time, I can sit down and talk with any private equity individual and any founder or any artist or any athlete and know exactly who I am. So I think that my parents did a really good job of allowing us to understand how important Christ was in our life, but also how important it was for us to find a way to eat as well. I tell folks all the time, my first NFL check was $19,000 as a 7th-round pick. That was more than my parents made collectively in a year.
Mm. So do you think it was part of their financial plan then? Like you said, they taught you how to survive, but then they taught you how to thrive. Is like, we got 4 children. We know that the cost of education is ridiculous. The plan is you're going to play these sports while also going to church. Like you said, your grandpa wasn't happy about the sports piece, but it was like, we need them to get some scholarships. And when the scholarship came around, I was like, hey, you're doing this because not only is it going to allow you to thrive from an educational standpoint, but this is a school that we were never going to be able to afford sort of situation.
They told us from the get-go, the minute we were able to even think, I'm not paying for school. This is your only route. Your route is to go get an education and to go get it for free. There was no kind of ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was the standard. So the standard was to, 1, be educated. And then 2, how do we as parents equip you to be well-versed in these sports to go and go get a scholarship? Now, was that their only focus? No, they allowed us to be kids. They raised us to be great human beings. They raised us to be God-fearing. They raised us to love one another and love our neighbors and those surrounding us. But they also, I think, were intentional about making sure that we played AAU basketball, to make sure that we were exposed to the opportunities there in basketball. They made sure that they invested in us, from a football standpoint. If we wanted to go and run track, they supported us. So they supported us and encouraged us every step of the way in whatever endeavor we wanted to go in. Just know you ain't going to college.
Right. We're not paying for it. You're going to figure this out.
You can go and you will go, but we ain't paying for it.
That's trusting the Lord. It's like, you are going to do this thing, period. But also, we're not paying for it. Like,
Exactly.
What about like jobs that you had as a kid? How were they handling that? Like 4 kids, was it like chores and you don't get paid to do chores? Or was it allowance? Or like what kind of money messages were you getting? Like, were you the spender or the saver in the household since you were the oldest?
They said that there's a roof over your head. You get paid every day. There are clothes on your back. You get paid every day. You got socks on. You got shoes on. You get paid every day. My dad, we would go and work at the shop all the time. And I, asked my mother, I'm like, I done pulled a couple of transmissions. I done did a couple motor jobs. I done did a couple brake jobs. There's money in his pocket. Like, when does mine come out? And she said the same thing. You got a roof over your head. You got clothes on your back. You got food in your belly. All you doing is helping the family. But it came to a point where I was actually doing quality work and pulling enough transmissions where I got to work for my first car. So I pulled transmissions. I think it was the summer of, I got to go back. I graduated in 07, so this had to be 04, 05, where I pulled enough transmissions where I got a 96 Chevy Tahoe. So in exchange for pulling transmissions for a summer, I got my first car.
That's a nice car too. That's like that was it.
That was it back then. Back then.
That's a good first car. I wanted a Tahoe, so I didn't get a Tahoe though. I got a Dodge Spirit. Like
Yeah, but worked to a point where I was able to get that, and then worked at a place called Fred's, which was kind of a knockoff of like Walmart and Dollar Store put together. Worked as a cashier, swept the floors, stocked, the whole nine. But it was about saving. Our parents created a banking account for us at the local credit union there in town. Whatever you made, you paid your tithes, and the rest of it you put into a savings account. We really didn't spend what we had, even as young people, because for one, it's Mahia. What you gonna spend it on?
right.
And then, and then two, what was the point in spending when you had the opportunity to save? Realizing how scarce money was in that area. If you made it, you found a way to save it.
You feel like that's manifested itself into like your adult life? That's kind of like the same schedule that you follow, like tithes, save a lot more than you spend.
It's always been live below your means, first and foremost. And I think once you take out the ties, then for me, as early on in my career, it was all about how do you save as much as you can. And then as I've progressed and I've gotten older and you've gotten past the point of saving, it's all right, well, how much can you invest? You have your nest egg set up. How much can you invest? So I would say that transition, both from high school to college, then to the pros, you realize you have to evolve, and the way in which you think you have to evolve. The way in which you handle money evolves, and the way that I handle money now is completely different than how I handle money when I was a 19-year-old kid. And the way in which I look at money and the way in which I look at capital is completely different than how my parents look at capital. When they hear about how much a flight is, I'm like, well, I got to get here and I got to get there, and them kids got to get there. There is no choice. But the relationship to money has changed based off of the experiences and the exposure that I've had, over the last decade and a half since I left home.
Let's go back to like high school then. Like you're talking about this evolution of how you've thought about money. So it's like you covered the way that you've thought about it in childhood, but you go from high school to college. When you get to college, like you're outside, you're in the big city for lack of a better term. Like you said, it's not a lot to do in your small town. Like, what was there like a money mindset shift, even just based on like what you were seeing around you at SMU?
I mean, it was different at SMU. I mean, if you know Dallas is a lot different than Mahia, and SMU is a lot different than what you would see in Dallas because of where it's located. So I never knew what a Maserati was. I never knew what a BMW was. I never knew what a Class C, Mercedes Benz was. I never knew what's the car that the doors flip up.
Oh, right. I don't know.
Yeah.
With the butterfly doors, right?
Yeah, the butterfly doors. I ain't never seen that before. So yes, it was a lot different, but I think the upbringing that I had, that didn't really change when I got to SMU. I stayed on campus. My rookie year, I saved the little money I had. As a college student, you ain't really saving much. You're trying to find a way to survive, even on scholarship. And then when I moved off campus, I moved out by myself. Again, I had a brother that I stayed and shared a bunk bed with my entire childhood life. The minute I had an opportunity to go out on my own, I went on my own. And I was cool with taking the brunt of all the bills. Most people get a roommate, it's 3 or 4 folks to an apartment. I was by myself and I was perfectly fine with being by myself. And went out by myself, and my bank and my loan agent was my mother. So if I ever got in a pickle, my mother would write me a promissory note. She would give me a promissory note, no interest on the note. And whenever I made enough money in college, I would pay her back. So my bank was my mother. Cheer camp. So they would have security for cheer camp. I would do security for cheer camp. Pizza Hut Park out in Frisco before Frisco got as big as they were. It was Pizza Hut Park. I can't remember what they call it now, but the soccer stadium. Would drive out to the soccer stadium. I was breaking even, driving all the way out to Frisco just to do security.
I was saying all that gas, right?
Yeah, what's all that gas? And that's Tahoe to go all the way out there and come back. But we're working Pizza Hut Park doing security. But yes, we'll find, a lot of those small jobs to kind of make ends meet during college. But again, I learned those things in high school. Now it was making ends meet and playing ball and trying to find a way to have a little extra during college. But my promissory notes were with my mother.
Right. You said your mom like thinks of capital differently, but she was definitely thinking about capital. She was thinking about banking. Like,
Yeah, banking.
She's gonna make you think long and hard before you come over here asking, right?
Exactly. So,
What did you major in?
so I majored in economics. My major was economics and sports management, and my master's was in organization dynamics. So really understanding the role of capital, the theory behind markets was something that I enjoyed. And I wanted to go into kind of the track of the MBA track to go and get an MBA from Cox School of Business there in Dallas, but grades didn't match to be able to go that route. So I went the economic route, which I think was just as valuable, and it turned out well for me.
Okay, but then life took maybe a little bit of a left turn. Tell us how we ended up in the NFL. Like, what were you planning to do with the economics degree? Or a lot of kids grow up and they're like, I'm gonna be an NFL player when I grow up. Were you always, I'm gonna do that? And is that like, how did it play out?
I think every child wants to play the National Football League, wants to play in the National Basketball League, wants to play in the Major League Baseball. If they're up north or in Wisconsin or up that way, they want to be in the NHL. I think every young child wants to be a professional athlete in some shape, form, or fashion. And I had those same aspirations. You know, I wanted to be a basketball player until a coach in high school said, hey, you're too short to play center. It's 10 scholarships for basketball. There's 22 scholarships for football. Make it make sense. There's a great opportunity to go play collegiate football. And when I got to SMU, my first year we went 1-11 with Phil Bennett. My second year we went 1-11 with June Jones. But that year June Jones came in, he was like, man, I think you have the feet and the ability to play in the National Football League. So I had somebody that really encouraged me to do so. Because again, you get to college, I was I think a 2-star recruit. It was 3 and 4-star guys that got all the love there before. You know, once I got into SMU, I went into SMU at 245. I was scrawny, I was small. I gained 30 or 40 pounds between that freshman and sophomore year, and I left college at 320. But I think for me, it was the encouragement that I got from June Jones, Dennis McKnight, Adrian Clem, who played in the National Football League and won 3 Super Bowls. Those were the folks that really started to push the envelope of, Kelvin, you can actually do this. So, yes, again, it was a dream and aspiration, but it was those types of folks that really encouraged me to actually start putting a better plan in place. And that's where the graduating in 3.5 years came from. It came from Adrian Clem to graduate in 3.5 years to then at least put myself in a position to be drafted in the 2011 draft. But grades didn't come back the way I wanted them to, and the round that I would have liked to have been drafted in. That didn't happen. So came back the following year, still didn't get drafted in the round that I wanted to get drafted in. Got drafted much later in the 7th round. But it was that type of encouragement and them putting that plan in place and working with me to start thinking about if the NFL is what you want, let's not only make sure that you have, again, that great education, but also making sure you're going down both routes. Educationally, making sure you have things in place to utilize the SMU degree and go into finance or whatever track goes after economics, or you go down this route of playing football and being the best at that. So it worked out well for me, I can say.
I would say it worked out very, very well. You know, everybody's path is their own. You write your own story, but it sounds like God has a pretty big part in, like, maybe you didn't need to be a first round pick because there's kind of like the stigma around like the first round pick money, how people organize themselves. It's like, I'm gonna keep you humble. I'm gonna keep you right here. You got what you want, but you're not gonna get all of what you want because you kind of probably got to organize your finances a little bit different as a 7th round pick. Everybody thinks NFL, everybody's filthy rich. And I know that that's not the truth, but maybe you want to give us a little bit of insight into what did it look like for, like you said, your first round homies versus you, and how were you starting to organize your finances once you got to the league?
Yeah, the thing is you think about a first round pick. I think in 2012, I think the first round pick got, 18 or 19 just to sign, 18, 19 million to sign. I think my signing bonus was
not even rememberable, right?
Low 6 figures.
Right.
Which again is meaningful compared to where I came from. So it was very meaningful. But yes, I had to be a lot different. Now everybody has the same kind of base salary. I think it was $325 when I came into the National Football League, which when people don't think about, when you're making $325, you cut that in half because you got to pay over Sam. So in essence, that's a little over $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you take out paying rent.
You got to pay your agent.
That's 3%.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pay your accountant. You start thinking about all these other things that come up, and after the year's up, you may only have 60, 70,000.
Yeah, you don't pay 4 or 5 years and retire and never work again on that kind of income. It's a good income, but not the kind that you just never kick your feet up and you just.
Right. So I had to think about it much differently. So you talk about God humbling me at that point. I said all the time, I came from the mud. Like I had to go and scrap and claw for everything that I've gotten, but it's also made me be very grateful for the scarcity that you may have from playing this game. I can't just go to the club and drop a couple bands just for the sake of it. If I'm gonna drop a couple bands, I'm dropping bands in a startup. I'm dropping bands in the stock market. I'm putting it into real estate. I'm putting it into some type of appreciating asset. And I realized that again early on in life is if you're going to spend money on something that's actually meaningful, whether it's an appreciating asset or it's making an impact in somebody's life. And again, was really taught that early on in life, and those things carried through from high school to college and now, even into the pros.
Yeah, where I met you was at a VC conference, and you're actually very well known in the VC world. But how did you get into VC? It sounds like you said, like, we got economics, we've got like a really good financial structure and foundation that is not, I think, traditional for what people think of when they think of pro athletes. And, like you said, some of the different backgrounds we come from, but like you're incredibly educated, but yet still, like you said, VC is a world that's pretty hard to get into, I think. I just had my introduction to it, but tell us a little bit about how you found VC and how you were starting to think about, like you said, investing overall and some of these alternative things besides a regular old 401k.
Yeah. The thing is coming from Texas, there are two big industries that are really what drives capital in Texas. That's oil and gas, which is what people think about when they think of Texas, and it's real estate. So for me, when I first came into the league, that was what I was really focused on. It was more oil and gas than it was real estate, but oil and gas because of the exploration that was happening within the Marcellus Shale, which was there in Western PA, Eastern Ohio, and Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken, right around in that area, which during that time, especially when I got drafted, there was an oil boom that was happening here in America before things started to get cracked down in 2014, 2015. So I was really looking at the oil and gas industry a lot, which is an alternative asset. I mean, yes, you can get oil and gas on the public markets, but you can also take a lot of risk and be able to go and strike oil and go and develop the opportunity to go and find oil and you be just as rich and just as wealthy as so many others that have done it historically. But when the bottom fell out of the oil and gas industry, I was like, I need to think about something different. And around that time, I blew my knee out. So, ACL, MCL, meniscus. And I think that was really a moment in life that really set the stage of you really need to think about what's going to happen if you're done right now. And the Super Bowl happened to be out in San Francisco that year in 2016, so knee got hurt in 2015. I think it's week 6 or week 7 of the year. And the Super Bowl happened that following February. And it was out in San Francisco. And the NFL took us out to go and see Uber and Twitter and Oculus and some of these companies that were really hot out there in the Valley. And then they allowed us to do a fireside chat, and I also got to see a couple companies that were over at A16. So Ben Horst, Jeff Jordan, and Joe Montana talked about kind of the athletes and entertainers that were starting to come into the space. And we also got to see companies like Jawbone and Halo and some of these companies that Juicero, some that did well and some that didn't do so well. And you kind of saw the startup ecosystem kind of firsthand. And I was like, if Joe can do this, who played the game at a very high level, won Super Bowls, had a lot of cachet. If Joe can do it, I think I can find a way to do it. And then as you realize, it was other people that were also investing in the startup ecosystem there in San Francisco. You had Joe Montana, you had Ronnie Lott, you had Harris Barton, you had Steve Young, you had Brett Jones. You had entertainers that were starting to come. You had Nas, you had Ashton Kutcher. He was spending a lot of time out there. So you had a lot of entertainers and celebrities that were starting to spend a lot of time there. So you saw this opportunity to go and learn. And for me, that's the concept that I really wanted to take as I was coming into the venture space. Being somebody that's an outsider, yes, there are concepts that are transferable from an NFL and football standpoint. But at the same time, you got to go learn a completely different industry. So the following year, I actually did an internship at a venture capital firm right across the street from A16, right there across the street from the Rosewood Hotel. Started spending time with a number of VCs, put money into a fund. Well, Next Play Capital was the first fund that I put money into, put money into a couple deals, just to kind of get a sense of what it was like to put money into a couple deals. And those deals happened to do okay. And then, again, just continue to go out there to San Francisco and learn. And then when I got to New York in 2017, things really just blew up because everybody who's in finance, Wall Street, private banking, commercial banking, real estate, commercial real estate, industrial real estate, hedge funds, private equity funds, venture funds, growth funds. I mean, any type of asset class that you can think of was there in New York. And playing for the Jets, either you love the Jets or you love the Giants. And every person that was associated with the Jets, I went to go meet them. So, got to meet Gary Vanderchuk, got to meet this guy, Mark Garrison, the founder of GLG, got to spend time with Nat Turner there in New York. And between Mark Garrison and Nat Turner, they introduced me to pretty much every influential general partner in every firm that I needed to know there in New York. And just spending time in New York, going back and forth into the city, because I stayed out in Jersey, going back and forth into the city, from 2017 to 2020, things started to crack a little bit. I started to figure it out, started to realize some of these patterns, the same patterns that we think about in sports, track, basketball, football, the same patterns that we think about, those are the same patterns that are used within the venture capital space or the private markets and alternative space, and just started kind of mining some of those networks. And those networks opened doors for me and gave me access to the table, and not only access to the table, but access to the information that's talked about at the table. Because it's one thing to get to the table, but if you don't know what they're talking about at the table, you just stuck there sitting there.
Sitting at the table.
Sitting at the table. Yeah. But they gave me the information that was being talked about at the table, which was super impactful. Met a young kid at the time. I mean, we're almost like brothers now. This guy, Jason Schumann, who was working for Mark Garrison at the time. And I consider him one of my day ones. I keep the document. And it's crazy. It's not like I had this stuff set up. It's just the stuff but literally this document that really went through kind of an analysis checklist, an investment memo, and pretty much the same stuff that I've been using for I met him in 2016, it's 2023, so the last 6 years. I've been using the same type of information that Jason gave me to really be able to look at a company, understand the company, be able to ask questions that are producing answers around whether it's the market, whether it's the traction, whether it's the revenue, and understanding kind of the lingo that's used in this space, in this category, that really helped speed up my development as it pertains to understanding the venture landscape, understanding the private equity landscape, and just understanding all things alternatives. You have the public markets, but I spend a lot of my time, in the illiquid or semi-illiquid type of assets that are more on the private side.
And so to that point, what was the motivation behind all of this? At this point, like you mentioned, blowing out your knee, oil and gas not going right. So I do want to talk about, like you said, like financial mistakes that you might have made and things that you wish you would have done differently. But I'm just interested. Like, I think someone listening might be thinking like NFL, like, okay, he started out in the 7th round, but he's now established. He's been there for a bit. They think sometimes of athletes, like you said, there's some stereotypes that like we go to sports, we do our sport, we lay in the bed all day. There is nothing else to the world, but this was an investment of time. And the way as you discussed it, this is like a significant investment of your time. Like, what was your motivation in investing this much time to be able to figure these things out in the first place?
It's curiosity. It's the willingness to want to learn. It's the lifelong learning. My master's was in organizational dynamics, and my first teacher that I had was this woman, Charlotte Barner, and she talked about being a lifelong learner. And when you think about that, whether it's on the football field, the track, in business, some of the best minds that have ever come on this planet are people that want to continue learning and thinking, and they become lifelong thinkers. So no matter what industry I happen to be in, I want to continue learning about that particular industry. I continue learning about football. How do I continue learning about the historical trees that are in football coaching, in coaching circles? How do I become a better individual as it pertains to understanding my body? How do I move my body better? How do I become healthier? How do I think about longevity? All those different things. It's been a lifelong learning. So as it pertains to kind of why I continue to spend time in this category was I wanted to continue to learn. There's so many rabbit holes you kind of get to go down as you spend time in this asset class, whether it's spending time understanding robotics, which for me was my first love as I got into the investing space was robotics. I grew up around cars all the time. That's a very tactile and hands-on type of industry. So robotics was and drones were things that got me excited. And then as I continued to learn, it was other things that got me excited. It was, all right, well, how does sports and data play a role in technology? And what does that look like from an athlete standpoint? And then it went from, all right, I understand sports and data. Well, what is this conversation around big data? And not only big data, all right, well, what does data infrastructure look like? What is the open source community? What is cybersecurity? We have these hacks that are happening. What's cybersecurity? Well, do athletes get impacted by cybersecurity? How are our Electronic medical records, how are they protected? Are they secure? If they're not secure, what's securing them? So you just start thinking about all these different scenarios and how they play a role in not only your life, but also the role of business and society. You realize there's an area to learn. And as you learn, you'd be surprised. There are companies that are building some things in that space. And by no means have I gotten it right every time. I invested in a company that was exploring gut health. Again, I talked about how do I continue to get better as an individual. I'm like, well, gut health. I got it. My gut got to be right to make sure that I'm digesting all the food the right way. Well, investing in a gut health company that crashed and burned. I got a call during training camp in 2019. Hey, this is the FBI. We're raiding this company. Why did you invest in this company? Yes.
Oh my.
Right. So I got battle scars too, just like you have battle scars. Got a left knee that got blown out. There's battle scars that come with playing this game that come with any profession. By no means does everybody have it right, but it's the journey that you get to embark upon that I think is what's most interesting about this venture and this asset class of riskier investments, or not only riskier investments, but risk-averse investments as you go up the capital stack. So it's this journey of wanting to learn, wanting to know, this person's name is on the building. Why is their name on the building? This person happened to be IPO in the company. What made them qualified to go and IPO that company? How did they build that company from 0 to 100 million in revenue? Like, what happened there? For me, it's this opportunity to go explore and understand how they did it. Much like many people want to understand, how does an Olympian become an Olympian? How does a professional athlete become a professional athlete? They want to know how. I'm just taking the same type of curiosity that a fan has for me. And I'm like, all right, I want to be a fan of somebody. All right, you turn 0 into a billion. How did you do it? You turn a billion into 10 billion. How'd you do that? You turn 10 billion into 100 billion. How'd you do that? For me, it's the same type of curiosity that a fan has for an athlete. I have that same type of curiosity about somebody that happens to be on Wall Street, or somebody that happens to be in San Francisco, or somebody that happens to be running a company in India, or a company in Asia. It's the same type of curiosity, but I think many people don't think of athletes as wanting to be that curious, because in actuality, after you work out, I'm an early morning person. Sometimes, during the off season, most times I'm at the gym at 7:00. You work out, you're done by 9:30. You go eat. From 12:00 on, what are you going to be doing?
I can't answer the question for everybody. Like you said, I'm like you. I want to go learn something.
For me, I can't play the game for 6 hours.
Yeah.
That's not me. I can't go clubbing at 10:00 at night. I go to bed at 8:30. Like, that's past my bedtime. That's just not for me. You realize what's for you and what works for you. All right, I got 4 to 5 hours that I can do a lot of stuff. I can take a lot of 20-minute calls. I can take a lot of 15-minute calls between 12:00 and 5:00. All right, when you add kids into the equation, all right, I got to pick the kids up at 3:30. So that means from 12 to 3:30, I got to be super efficient with my time. Just like you're super efficient with your time as an athlete, between that 8 to 12 time frame, I got to be super efficient with my time from 12 to 3. So it's thinking through, all right, I done worked out, I done ate right, I done did my mobility work. And the thing is, I done got to the point where if I'm doing a massage, if I'm being on a massage table for 3.5 hours or 3 hours, I'm going to be taking calls during the whole time. My masseuse know exactly what I'm doing on the business front, because I'm taking literally, where my headphones at? Headphones.
Right.
Headphones in my ear, taking a call while I'm getting massage. If I'm getting I got a stretch last night at 8:00. I'm literally knocking out emails while I'm getting stressed. It's how do you find a way to be efficient? How do you find a way to utilize the resources that you have? And how do you find a way to utilize the time you have? We all have the same amount of time. I think as athletes, we like, all right, I done worked out, my day is done. That I'm not that person.
Have you done something to encourage like your teammates or the people around you? Like you said, the stereotype exists. We know that's not all of the athletes, but is there some that you've seen and you're like, hey, come on, like, let me show you like this world. Let me show you how to get into it. What kind of like interest have you taken in bringing people along? Or is it just like, hey, I got this desire. I can't have this desire for you.
In the country, we say this, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. I done tried to lead a whole bunch of people to not only this arena, but whatever arena you happen to be passionate about. And I usually get an opportunity to find out about individuals, and I find out, what is it that you like? All right, you like real estate? Okay, here's all the real estate conferences, or here are all of the people in real estate you need to meet. All right, you like entertainment? Cool. All right, here's all the people in LA and entertainment you need to meet. Okay, hey, you like finance? All right, here are all the people in finance you need to know. Here are the people on Wall Street that you need to know. Venture? Oh, you in my lane? Cool. Come on out here to San Francisco. There's a conference happening every year right after training camp or right after mini camp. You should come check it out. I don't got time. I got to go on vacation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, fair enough.
I don't got time. I'm traveling with the boys. I don't know what to tell you. Like, Next Play Capital has the same summit every year. You got Next Play Capital that does a summit during the summer. You got Game Time with Josh Childress that does a conference during the summer. Rudy Klein Thomas used to do a conference during the summer. So you have people from all over the planet who are doing these conferences. Now, it's up to you to utilize those services. Now, whether you want to utilize those services is on you. But all I can do is tell you about them. And I've told many people about them. So I try.
You took all those horses and you brought them to the water. That's all we can do.
I done took a whole bunch of them to the water.
If you're an athlete listening, what I'm hearing is you're happy to help if you truly want help. Like, you're never going to say no to somebody who's trying to figure out what I know is always available for somebody else to know, but I'm not going to try to make you know, right?
Well, the thing is, I can't make you want to learn, because it's all learning. It's all learning. All right, you made 10 million. Great. How you take that 10 million and turn it into 20? How you turn that 20 into 40? How you turn that 40 into 160? And if you cool with your 20 and you say, hey, I don't need nothing else. I don't want nothing else. I'm cool with my 20. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to smoke. I'm going to play my games. I'm chilling for the rest of my life. More power to you. Happy for you. That's just not me. But if you want to go and learn, if you want to go and explore, if you want to go and smoke and do venture, come on. I will take you to all the cannabis companies that are in the venture capital space, and you can smoke all you want to and make money doing it.
This is a no judgment zone. I will put you on wherever you want to be put on.
Whatever you want. Hey, you want a drink? You want tequila? You want the tequila company that happens to be taking a cool. It's one called Kumos. I got you. I got you. Like, literally, wherever you want to go, there's something for you. Whatever your passion area is, literally. Hey, I want to go travel. Cool. I will find a travel company that happens to be tech-enabled. It don't even got to be a tech-enabled. It could be a private equity company that's all around travel. I will be more than happy to introduce you to those folks. So for me, it's understanding the individuals and building a relationship with them. And then secondly, I will take you, literally handhold you to the individual that will help you do what you say you want to do. Now, once I make that introduction, can you please follow up?
Mm-hmm. Can you do your part, please? Right.
That's it. Can you do your part? But more than happy to open the door, because so many people have opened the door for me, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Like you said, to that point, you can get a seat at the table, but once you get to the table, you got to say something, you got to do something, you got to learn something. There's action that has to happen. Like, people want the seat, but when you get in the seat, what happens next? And that's a key piece of the puzzle. But to that point, like you said, it sounds like, I know you've been very helpful to me. You've been very helpful to Sonia. I know that you have that giving heart. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the other philanthropic efforts you have? Like, it sounds like you're now doing things, like you're able to invest in this space. Like, NFL has been good to you. Investing's been good to you. Like, how are you giving back in time, money, treasure, whatever ways that you feel beyond tithing are you giving back to the community?
I've dealt in two verticals historically. One is ending hunger, both domestic and worldwide, because I was on Women's Infants and Children. So I know about the government-based programs that are needed for individuals, especially people of color, to survive in today's society. So I've always been passionate about hunger. Every city that I've played in, I've worked with the food bank in each of those cities. So Pittsburgh, Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank. When I played in Jacksonville, Northeast Florida Food Bank. When I played in Jersey, it was a New York City Food Bank. Here in Arizona, it's the United Food Bank. And then I sit on the Entertainment Council for Feeding of America, which oversees all of the food banks across the country. So I've really been big about making sure that I'm serving in that particular ecosystem, because I was somebody that came out of it and came out all right. Secondly, is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So STEAM. I say this all the time. Every person, every young person, you can't go pro in football, but you can go pro in STEAM. There's something science, technology, engineering, arts, and math related in nearly every industry right now. How do you develop those STEM disciplines to be able to go out and conquer and explore this global economy that we all have access to now? There used to be a time 20, 30 years ago, didn't nobody know about somebody that was what business was going on in Singapore, what business was going on in Europe or France or Sub-Saharan Africa or Cape Town or Colombia, where you at? Like, nobody knew what was going on in these locations. Now, this is a free-for-all. Literally, there's a global economy that's available to you. But it's something science, technology, engineering, arts, and math related to that particular function in some shape, form, or fashion. And again, that's what I was exposed to. My dad, my grandfather, they worked on cars every single day. Something science, technology, engineering, arts, and math related every single day. And understanding how important that was for their life, realizing that this is something that I can build on and be able to expose young people to. So have done it, especially within technology, because that's the area that I invest in. So how do you make sure that young Black and brown kids have access to understanding how to be a part of this technology craze and this technology movement that's continuing to happen? Engineering, whether it be hardware engineering or software engineering, something math related, you can go down the gamut. Something is always math related. And then the arts. I love being able to collect art. I love being able to explore and go into museums and understanding how important art is to history. But there's also a creative element that you're able to use when you're spending time in and around the artistic folks, because they just see the world in a much different way. They move in a much different way. It's not bad. It's just different. Some people are very right brain oriented. Some people are very left brain oriented. Some people are all about being on time. When you're around creatives, they don't have no sense of time. They just go and they go with the flow. That's just how they roll. That's just them. And you either love them or you hate them. I found a couple that I love, and it's been an amazing experience because they just think a lot differently than most people who are just very rigid. They're just very free flowing. They just go with the wind, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just their way of doing things. But the point is there's something science, technology, engineering, arts and math related every single day. And those are the two lanes that I stay in. I give there, I serve there. I work with a number of different corporations in those particular areas and nonprofits in those particular arenas. I have a donor advised fund. Didn't start the foundation, but started a donor advised fund. So didn't have to worry about the overhead. Again, you talk about money type of conversations. Instead of spending money to go and hire all these different people to run a foundation, you work with a DAF.
Preach, preach. Lord have mercy, preach.
So it's nothing wrong with the foundation. But when your money is not the same after you're done playing, what's going to happen to that foundation? What's going to happen to that nonprofit? What you have with a DAF is you have the ability to be very flexible. That money is accruing over time because it's in a donor advised fund, FUND, meaning it is making money while it is sitting there. So utilize that particular feature to be able to serve in every single capacity, philanthropically through that donor advised fund. So while I'm not deploying that capital out of that fund is making me money. So I can be able to pull interest off of that to be able to then sow that into the community.
Hallelujah. That was the gem of the day that I didn't see coming, but I am a big proponent of the DAF and a big proponent of, like you said, everybody wants to start their own thing, put their own name on it. And it's they have these real baseline organizations that can't make a lot of impact, where if we had all gotten together and done one thing, or if everybody was pooling their funds, and, the DAF also gives you similar availability. So I really, really love that piece of the puzzle. All right, we are at what we call the final sprint. I'm going to rapid fire some questions at you, and you can tell me whatever you want. Are you ready?
I'm loving it. Let's do it.
What's your sprinting abilities like? You fast?
So if you want to go 10 yards, I got you. After that, you can have it. 10 yards, I stay in my box. That's my box. I stay in my lane.
Know what you're good at. Right.
Exactly.
All right, you got $20 in your pocket right now. What do you spend it on?
Nothing. I put it in the bank.
Hey.
I take that back. I would not put it in the bank. I would put it in a company called NVIDIA.
Can you put $20 in NVIDIA, though? Do they allow that?
I put the 20 to work right now.
I'm just saying, is that a minimum investment that's available in NVIDIA? Can you only put $20 in?
It's probably like $300 right now. So I play on it.
You're going to put your 20 in savings to get the rest.
Yeah. I would put it to work, though.
All right. Fair enough. Finish this sentence. That awkward financial moment when?
The FBI called me.
Right. That's pretty awkward. That
was pretty awkward.
A little bit scary.
Yeah.
Something you do for fun that doesn't cost anything.
Riding four-wheelers.
Four-wheelers. Okay. That's slightly dangerous.
I'm country. I can't wait to get back to Texas.
What is your worst money habit?
Eating.
Ooh, that is a lot of people's worst money habit.
I love to eat. I will pay, I don't splurge on a lot, but I will pay for a very, very, very nice piece of steak.
Mm-hmm. I love a good meal too. Cost aside. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Take pride in everything that you do.
Most meaningful gift you've ever received?
Again, I did not set this up.
Sure you didn't.
My son, my birthday was, well, yeah, Father's Day and my birthday, but not too long ago. And my son and daughter did like little, you know, my dad is super because him being nice, doing what him supposed to do. That's how she literally how it said on here. That's exactly how she talks. She's 4 years old.
Right. Verbatim.
Verbatim.
I love this question because very seldom is the most meaningful gift that anyone ever received related to anything that is monetary. All right, last question. Can you tell us one thing that you would like to improve about your personal finances in the upcoming year?
Focus is to become more focused. Even with investing, you have to be focused. And I will say one thing that I've really tried to do. I love collecting art. Like I really do. And it can be an addiction sometimes because you buy stuff that you love. And I've really had to become more focused in that particular category. Again, I'm not talking about, literally, I'm looking at my board. There's 3 artists that I got to get this year. I can't deviate. And I just saw somebody just sent me some good art last night. And I'm like, oh, I've been looking at that artist for a long time, but I can't pull the trigger.
Do you have somewhere to put all this art though? Like, is it like now a warehouse full of art?
I'm running out of room, and I'm having to build relationships with museums to see if they can help a brother out and let me put the work at the museum for a little while.
Can you hold my art for a minute?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what's the action item to this focus? What do you need to do to like really hold yourself accountable to doing this thing?
I'll say no. Literally, here are the 3 artists: Von Span, Dominique Chambers, Ho J. Kim. Those are the 3 artists that are on my list this year. I cannot buy anything else. Period. Self-control, but it's just saying no.
Okay, so people have permission to hit you up on 1231 and say, did you only buy those 3 artists or did you deviate?
Literally, I have a group chat of other collectors, and they're holding me accountable, and I'm holding myself accountable.
Okay.
I put it out into the space. I cannot buy any more art this year. Only those 3.
That's a real good way, though, to be accountable. Tell others about it because then they will hold you accountable. And now you have all these podcast listeners that are also going to hold you accountable.
Oh, boy.
All right, you made it to the podium. Your sprint was pretty good. We went a little bit left, a little bit right. It's more like a 400, which for me is not a sprint, but for Sonia, that's a sprint. So here's your medal. Here you go. It's imaginary. And in the words listening world, you're standing on the podium. So now is your time to shine. Shout yourself out. Tell us how we can support you, where we can find you. Anything you want us to know that we didn't cover today.
Hey, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's my favorite social media platform. They're on LinkedIn. Otherwise, kelvinbeachum.com on the website. I'm so excited that I got the opportunity to come on and spend time with an Olympian. I've never been interviewed by an Olympian. I've never had this much time to speak with an Olympian. So this is special for me as well. So really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for being on the show. I hope you enjoyed listening to Kelvin's Money Memoir. He covered a lot of ground today, sharing his story. And one of the things that stood out to me was how he used his extra time to continue this lifelong learning process. As he mentioned, curiosity motivates him to continue seeking knowledge in all the different new areas that life has to offer. And it's helped get him started and end up having a lot of success with VC. Another thing he mentioned was the networking piece of the puzzle. He makes time to connect with others. Even after the call, he took time to provide me with a few updated resources that he's bumped into that I may not have known about. And these connections have helped open doors and create opportunities for him. And the things he shared with me today just so resonate because I too am a lifelong learner and I'm not as great at networking as I could be, but I do pretty well because I know how important it is for both, life and for finances. So there's a saying that your network is your net worth. And so I think sometimes people think about that as like, there's opportunity to tap into resources to help improve your overall financial situation. But also, my dad always said, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll tell you who you are. So it's the same sort of thing. Who are the people around you? That is your network. And that may also be affecting your net worth. Are you hanging out with people who have poor money habits? Are you hanging out with people who don't have ambition or have goals? Your literal net worth could be affecting your net worth. So don't be afraid to take time to connect with others, to talk with them, to learn from them, to share what you know. Sharing is absolutely caring. I think that if we pool our knowledge and our resources, it can help us accomplish more together than we can apart. So Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you found this episode worth listening to. As always, if you have financial questions, suggestions for guests, or you would like to share your own money memoir, please don't hesitate to contact us through our website, worth-listening.com.